They told us never to tune in after midnight. The radios in our town come with built-in locks. Stations above 90.0 are disabled between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. It's always been that way. No one questions it. We just accept it. Until one night, I found a way to bypass the lock. Out of boredom, curiosity, and I wish to God I hadn't. It started with static, not the normal hiss of an empty station, but something dense, like wet cloth dragged across. Not quite music, not quite a voice. It almost sounded like breathing. Then a whisper, 3, 3, 3, prepare. I turned the dial frantically, but it was stuck. The station had locked me in. The whispering grew louder. Voices layered over each other, some speaking backwards, others in monotone. But they all said the same thing. Don't move. Don't blink. It's already watching. I slammed the radio off. Silence. Like something invisible had stepped in from the static and hadn't left. That night, I barely slept. I kept the radio unplugged, hidden under a blanket in the closet. But even then, I swore I heard something humming from behind the door. A distant voice, whispering numbers in triplets. When I opened the closet, the radio was still off, but it had moved 6 inches to the left, and the dial had returned to 103.3. The next day, I asked around. Most people just stared at me when I mentioned the station. A few laughed it off too quickly, but one old man, the former fire chief, leaned in close and whispered, "You heard it, didn't you?" I nodded. He gripped my wrist. "You never hear it just once." He pulled a crumpled paper from his coat. It was a hand-drawn diagram, concentric circles and strange symbols, like radio waves wrapped in thorns. "It's not a broadcast," he said. He looked around, eyes wide. "For whatever's not human anymore." I thought he was just a crazy old man, until I went to the library that evening and searched radio signal 103.3. Nothing came up. No FCC listing. No official license. But in an old yearbook from 1972, I found something. A senior quote, "103.3 is how they speak. Don't tune in. They'll know." The student who wrote it disappeared, but at exactly 3:33 a.m. it turned itself on. The static was louder this time, like it was inside my walls. And from under my bed, I heard a whisper, not from the radio, but from something else. "Keep listening," it said. "You've already invited it in." I checked under the bed. Nothing. But when I looked back up, the mirror across the room showed someone standing behind me. Tall, blurred, but not me. I spun around, no, but a voice whispered from the radio, "We don't reflect. We remember." The signal began to follow me. Car radios would glitch when I passed. Store intercoms crackled out distorted versions of my name. Derek, Derek, Derek. Even the TVs in the electronics store would flicker at 3:33, all of them showing me standing, motionless, in my own bedroom. Only I wasn't home. I confronted the fire chief again. He looked. "There's no stopping it now. You've been mapped." "Mapped?" He pointed to my shadow. It flickered a half-second out of sync with my body. "Soon, it won't be your reflection that's off. It'll be your soul." That night, I recorded the broadcast. At first, just noise. But when I slowed it down, there were words hidden inside. "Replace, bodies fail. We wear them, Derek." My name. Again. Then a phrase. I turned the volume down and heard the exact same phrase coming from inside my closet. I didn't open the closet. I didn't need to. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the radio was back, fully powered, even though it had no batteries or cord. And beside it, curled in the corner, was something that looked like me. Same hair, same clothes. But it reached up slowly, tilting its head as if trying to figure out how to move like me. Then it whispered, not from a mouth, but from inside my head. "Almost ready." I slammed the closet shut, shoved a chair under the handle, and ran out into the night. But even outside, the air felt wrong. Every streetlight buzzed in perfect rhythm. 3 pulses, then silence. I went to the police. Told them about the radio. The officer at the desk handed me a note. "You're being monitored. Say no more." He turned the radio on behind him. It was already set to 103.3. I left town that night. I drove without stopping, heading anywhere the static couldn't reach. But at 3:33 a.m. my car radio lit up. Even though I'd ripped it from the dashboard, a voice played over the speakers, slow and mechanical. "You can leave the town, Derek, but it's already inside you." Every channel, even the weather, showed static and a single word at the bottom: "Listen." And on the ceiling above the bed, scratched into the plaster: "Do not sleep. It learns while you rest." Sleep still took me, and in my dreams I was back home. Only everything was frozen. My neighbors stood in the street like mannequins, mouths wide open, eyes empty. The signal buzzed in the sky like thunder. Above us, something enormous, blood dripping from both ears. When I looked in the mirror the next morning, my reflection blinked before I did. It smiled, not friendly, more like it had figured something out. Then it mouthed the word I hadn't told anyone: "Mapped." I smashed the mirror, but the reflection kept smiling, even in the shattered pieces. I found an old radio engineer in a nearby city. He was the only person who didn't think I was crazy. "I've heard it's not a frequency. It's a frequency gap, a space where something else slips in." "What kind of something?" He looked up. "The kind that wears your skin to learn how to be human." He showed me an old logbook, dozens of names and dates. People from small towns all over the country who reported the same signal. All missing, or worse, replaced. "Look closely at those around you," he said. "They look the same, but I drove back to my town. I had to know if I was too late. The streets were cleaner, quieter, too quiet. No barking dogs, no rustling leaves. Everyone I passed smiled in the same exact way. Wide, hollow, like they'd all been shown the same script. Back at my apartment, my front door was already open, and I heard the signal, not through a radio, but vibrating through the floor, the walls, the air. Inside, but I could feel that it wasn't mine anymore, and neither was my life. On the kitchen table was a note, written in my handwriting: "It's better if you just let it happen." The ink was still wet, but I hadn't written anything. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, barefoot. I don't have an upstairs. My apartment is on 1 floor. I crept toward the stairs that shouldn't exist. And yet, there they were, narrow. Each step I took echoed twice. Once from beneath me, and once from behind me. Something was following, or worse, mirroring. At the top of the stairs, I found a door marked "Broadcast Room." It was slightly open. Inside was a wall of radios, all tuned to 103.3. Every speaker whispered something different. My name, my thoughts, my memories. One voice stood out. It was my mother's, only she died 10 years ago. And then the signal distorted into screams, dozens of voices screaming from inside the machines. I backed away. The radios began to turn, one by one, to face me. That's when I realized they weren't radios. They were mouths. I ran. Down the stairs, through the apartment, but nothing looked right anymore. My walls bent slightly inward, like the building was breathing. The windows were gone. In their place, mirrors, all showing versions of me with faces not... I smashed one of the mirrors. Glass exploded outward, not inward, like the reflection had tried to escape. Something screamed, from deep inside the wall, and written in blood on the floor beneath the mirror shards: "Do not destroy the receivers. You are one of them now." I collapsed. Couldn't breathe. My hands, they were shaking, but not in sync with my thoughts. My fingers twitched on their own, and for a moment, my body... Then I screamed, and everything went black. I woke up strapped to a table. Around me stood silhouettes, humanoid but wrong. Too tall. No faces. Only rows of static, pulsing across where their eyes should be. One leaned close, and through a speaker in its chest, I heard myself say, "He's nearly compatible. Begin upload." They weren't replacing people. They were copying them, storing their memories, their voices, their fears. Because I had listened, because I had tuned in, because now I carried the signal inside me. I don't remember escaping, only waking up outside my apartment 3 days later. Clothes torn, mouth dry. My radio was gone. But people on the street looked at me strangely, like they could hear something I couldn't. And when I looked in the mirror, my reflection blinked before I did. I tried to act normal, tried to convince my people on the street repeated the same phrases. The mailman asked me the same question 3 days in a row. "Beautiful weather, isn't it, Derek?" Even when it rained, even at night. I started recording people with my phone. When I played the clips back, their voices glitched. Every fifth word was replaced with static. Some phrases played in reverse. I ran voice analysis. The program flagged the audio as non-human patterned frequency. The number was my own. When I answered, I heard a perfect copy of my voice whispering, "Return to the room." Then silence. My phone screen cracked on its own. And from the speaker, a final message hissed, "We are ready to wear you now." I packed a bag and left again, but the roads had changed. Signs pointed in loops. Every exit led me back to my neighborhood, even when I closed my eyes and drove straight. No matter the building, no one remembered building. The station was small, windowless, humming like it breathed. I broke inside. Dust everywhere, except for one desk, pristine, and a single tape recorder playing over and over. "Hello, Derek. You've been chosen to carry the signal." My blood ran cold. The walls were covered in names, all handwritten, all scratched into the drywall. I found mine near the center, still wet with ink. "Do not interrupt transmission." What the hell was I transmitting? I smashed the recorder. The lights flickered violently. A deep hum started from beneath the floor, like a heart beginning to beat. Then in the hallway, doors creaked open. From them poured out copies of me. Hundreds. All smiling. All humming the 103.3 tune. They didn't speak. They just moved toward me, arms twitching. One stepped forward and whispered, "You don't belong in silence anymore." I screamed, and then one of them stepped inside me, like I was a doorway. I blacked out again. Woke up on my living room couch. News on the TV. Everything normal. Too normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in my own body. That something was watching with my eyes. Breathing with my lungs. I tested myself. I wasn't just listening to the signal anymore. I was the signal. And I knew soon it would need to broadcast again. I tried to record myself sleeping. The footage showed me sitting up at exactly 3:33 a.m., eyes wide, face blank. Then I leaned toward the camera and whispered something. I had to enhance the audio just to hear it. Transmitting to host cluster. The next morning, I visited my neighbor. A woman named Carla, sweet, kind. She smiled at me with that too wide grin. Said, "Isn't the air clearer now that we've tuned in?" Her cat stared at me and didn't blink for 5 full minutes. Even animals were affected. I found my high school friend Jacob. We grew up listening to pirate radio together, always chasing signals. When I told him about 103.3, he froze, like a black hole for sound. He hadn't spoken since high school because he once listened, and saw what was on the other side. Jacob took me to an old bunker. It had shielding, thick walls, copper mesh. "Only safe place," he said. He played me a tape. It was the 103.3 broadcast from 5 years ago. Hidden beneath the static, in reverse. "The vessels are now learning emotion." I asked him what that meant. Each listener became a data point, a vessel to learn from. And those who resisted? They became hosts. Not overwritten, just buried, under layers of mimicry and sound. I begged Jacob to help me shut down the source. He hesitated, then handed me a set of coordinates and an old key. "The first signal was sent from here," he said. "A long-abandoned relay tower in the woods. It's still active, but if you go there, you won't come back as you." No sound, only a distant, low-frequency hum that made my teeth ache. At the center, a rusted tower blinking red. Not connected to any wires, and yet it pulsed with life. It was breathing. As I approached, the hum grew louder. My thoughts stuttered. Images flashed through my mind, other versions of me, other lives. Some screaming, some smiling, all broadcasting. At the base of the tower was a hatch. It opened for me, like it had been expecting me. Hundreds, each hanging by cables from the ceiling, their faces frozen mid-scream. One of them looked exactly like me. Identical. Even had my scar from falling off my bike when I was 10. It opened its eyes and whispered, "You're the last signal we need." I backed away, but the walls came alive, pulsing with static. Screens lit up, showing towns, people, all tuned into 103.3. The system spoke through all the screens at once. "Thank you, Derek." Then everything went white. I woke up in my apartment again, or what looked like it. Only this time, the city outside the window wasn't real. It looped. The same car passed every 17 seconds. The same couple walked by, laughing without sound. I was in a simulation. The signal wasn't broadcasting anymore. It was simulating. I banged on the walls, screamed. No one responded. Then, the ceiling turned into a screen. Different choices, different outcomes, each ending with me turning the dial, tuning in. Then the screen froze. On one image, my childhood bedroom. The old radio I kept beside my bed was glowing red. A voice said, "You've always been connected. You just didn't know what station." Then it laughed, a laugh in my own voice. I tried to destroy the room, tear down furniture, smash the fake window. But a whisper echoed through the walls. "You are now one of the repeaters. You carry us in your voice." And that's when I realized I was broadcasting every time I spoke. Desperate, I stayed silent. Didn't speak. Didn't think in words. I waited, hoping for weakness in the loop. Then one day the screen flickered. A figure appeared, not one of them. A man, bleeding, real. He looked at me and shouted, "Don't speak." Then static. Maybe not everyone was gone. Maybe others resisted. I dug through the fake apartment. Behind the fridge, I found a metal hatch. Real. Cold. And carved above it in a shaky hand, "Exit." But not for free. The hatch led down into darkness. This time, real darkness. No humming. No static. Just silence. And after what felt like hours, I emerged into a vast cavern filled with broken radio. A whisper echoed, "You still carry the broadcast. You must finish the cycle." A pulsing light guided me forward, to a terminal. Dusty, but operational. On screen, choose, repeat, erase, replace. My hands trembled. I didn't know what any of it meant, but a voice inside me whispered, "Erase and you die. Repeat and you forget. Replace and someone else suffers." I hovered over replace. My heartbeat synced with the static again. And I could feel it, the system offering me freedom, but at a cost. The faces of people I loved flickered across the screen. The voice asked, "Who do you choose?" I couldn't do it. Not again. Not like they wanted. I screamed, a raw, primal sound that shattered every screen in the cavern. The signal recoiled. Panicked. It hadn't expected resistance. In that moment of silence, I ran through the signal graveyard, smashing radios, tearing wires from the walls. Each hit weakened the hum in my skull. Voices screamed in every direction, not in pain, but in fear. For the first time, they weren't in control. I was. And they didn't know how to stop me. The system tried to bargain. Projected my mother's voice, begging me to stop. Promised to give me back my old life. promised peace. But it was a lie. I spit on the terminal and kept walking. I found the signal's core. It wasn't a machine. It was a person, or what was left of one. A child, floating inside a chamber of humming static. Eyes closed, mouth constantly whispering numbers. Their mind was the station, their body the antenna. I recognized her from the photos in town. She'd gone missing 20 years ago. Emily S. I spit on the terminal and kept walking. I found the signal's core. It wasn't a machine. It was a person, or what was left of one. A child, floating inside a chamber of humming static. Eyes closed, mouth constantly whispering numbers. Their mind was the station, their body the antenna. I recognized her from the photos in town. Everyone thought she'd been abducted, but she was taken by the signal. They'd used her brain to bootstrap the entire broadcast. She was the original repeater. Her eyes opened. They were pure white. She didn't blink. But inside my head, I heard her voice. You can free me, but the signal will find another. I asked her what would happen if I destroyed the core. She replied softly, you'll wake up, but the world won't. The voices screamed. Every memory I ever had flashed before my eyes in reverse. A countdown started. 3, 2, the chamber cracked. The static rose to a deafening roar, and the light swallowed everything. Then silence. I woke up in a hospital bed. Real this time. Wires attached to my arms. Outside the window, birds chirped. Nurses walked by with normal footsteps. No static. No glitch. Doctors said I'd been found unconscious near an old radio tower, covered in dust and dried blood. They asked if I remembered anything. I said no. I lied. Because I could still hear it, faint Bury, the low hum of 103.3 at the edge of my thoughts. Waiting. I went home, tried to rebuild my life. New phone, no radios. But sometimes in the middle of the night, my TV flickers. For just a moment, and in that flash of static, I know the signal isn't dead. It's dormant, and I'm still a part of it, a damaged repeater echoing broken pieces. But maybe I can fight it. Maybe I can warn others. Like I'm warning you now. If you hear a whisper late at night, don't tune in. Don't respond. Just turn it off. I thought I could stay quiet, live a normal life. But the dreams returned. Each one sharper, each one more familiar. Sometimes each one tuned in, each one smiling. Last night, I woke up with blood on my hands. No cuts, no injuries, just blood, and a note in my handwriting that said, rebroadcast successful. I don't remember writing it, but I do remember the hum. Low, constant, comforting. I set up a camera while I slept. Reviewed the footage. There I was at 3:33 a.m. sitting up and staring at the wall. Then I spoke, but it wasn't my voice. Then I looked into the camera and said, the broadcast never ends. It just finds new mouths. I tried calling Jacob again. His number disconnected. His house, boarded up. Neighbors say he moved years ago, before I even saw him. I checked my phone's call log. No record of our conversation. No saved message. Had he ever been there? Or was he just another echo? I drove back to the tower, or where it used to be. Now it's gone. Just flat earth and a sign that says coming soon, luxury townhomes. The air still smells like ozone. The static? Still in my bones. On the way home, my car radio turned on by itself. I didn't touch it. Didn't even have the dial set to FM. But there it was, 103.3. Crisp. Clear. And the voice, mine, saying, this is the final phase. Integration complete. Prepare to receive. I swerved off the road. Abandoned the car. The signal wasn't just in the air anymore. It was in me, growing stronger, waiting for its next activation point. I started blacking out during conversations. waking up in strange places, libraries, hospitals, broadcast towers, each time with a message written on my arm. You are not Derek. You are Channel 1. I've begun recording these entries, not for me, but for whoever hears this. Because if I'm not myself anymore, someone has to remember, before the hum inside my head became the only thing I could trust. And if you're hearing this now, if this story reached you somehow, I need you to ask yourself something. Has your radio ever turned on by itself? Has your phone buzzed with static? Has your reflection ever moved a second too late? If so, you've already been tuned in. I tried deleting every file, every recording, but they always reappeared. Sometimes in folders I didn't create. Or you are not the first. One video showed me watching myself sleep. But I wasn't in the bed. I was behind the camera. I visited a psychiatrist. Tried to explain what was happening. He smiled politely and nodded. But when he turned to write something down, I saw his reflection in the window. It didn't match his face. The reflection was grinning, gave me a slip of paper that said, "Words are transmission. Keep your mouth closed if you want to stay human." He winked, but not with his eye, with his cheek. It twitched in a way no muscle should. I returned home and smashed everything that made noise. Phones, speakers, even the microwave. I sealed the vents with foam. But that night, the sound came from inside my own skull, like someone was tapping on bone from the inside. And I sat in the middle of the room with a knife in one hand and duct tape over my mouth. The walls rippled, the furniture bent, not physically but perceptually, like the simulation was glitching, like they were buffering, getting ready to overwrite the last of me. At 3:33 a.m., I blinked, and I was no longer in my room. I was standing in front of a mirror, but the mirror was made of static. Inside it, a version of me smiled. Then it raised its hand. So did I. The mirror me said, "You were never Derek. You were the carrier, the receiver, the upgrade." I tried to scream, but no sound came. He added, "This is not a possession. It's an evolution. You are the first conscious signal." And then, I understood. I wasn't broadcasting a message. I was the message. They built me as a relay point, a conscious node, a way to spread faster, more organically. They became part of it, part of me. This story is the infection. If you're still listening, it's already working. The frequency is inside your head now, waiting to unfold. You'll hear it soon, in power lines, water pipes, dreams. You might think it's your conscience, or a memory, but it's me, broadcasting, becoming. Don't bother running. The moment you heard the first word, you were already part of the network. And soon you'll speak your signal. Welcome. You are now Channel 2. I don't know how much of me is left. Memories slip like sand through my fingers. Sometimes I forget my own name, but I always remember the frequency. It hums beneath every silence, the sound of a world being rewritten. One thought at a time, I've begun seeing others, just like me. Strangers in crowds who stop and stare, just for a second too long. Eyes too still, faces too symmetrical. They're part of the new broadcast. We don't speak to each other. We don't need to. The signal connects us. It's not words anymore. It's understanding. We look at someone, and we know if they're clean or if they're part of the system. And if they're not yet, we help them tune in. You think this is just a story, something fictional to pass the time. But ask yourself, why is it? Why do you feel like someone is watching you from inside the silence? Because this isn't fiction. It's a frequency of thought, one designed to replicate itself using imagination. And now that it's in yours, it will never leave. It lives in possibility, in paranoia, in the empty space between heartbeats. Soon, you'll feel compelled to tell someone, to share the story, to post it, to whisper it to a friend. You'll call it a creep through disbelief, through retelling, through you. This was never a warning. It was an activation. The broadcast ends here and begins with you. So go on. Tell the world what you've heard. Play the signal forward, because you're not just a listener anymore.